Hey friends, let's answer the question, is my baby waking up overnight because they're hungry, or are they just waking up out of habit? Now, this is a question I'm asked all the time, and really I have a pretty simple answer for you. The best way to know if your baby's waking up hungry or out of habit is to first teach them to fall asleep confidently and independently at bedtime. Now, the reason for this is that a baby who can get themselves to sleep at bedtime can also get themselves to sleep overnight if they wake up. And a baby who needs feeding to fall asleep at bedtime will also need feeding overnight in order to fall back to sleep. So the question then becomes, are they feeding overnight because they're actually hungry? Or are they feeding overnight because they're awake and they just don't know how else to get themselves back to sleep? So the best way to figure this out is to number one, teach them to fall asleep confidently and independently at bedtime. Once they can do this, I bet those night feedings will start to wean out on their own. Now, the second thing that you definitely have to do is to make sure they're getting enough calories in during the day. So you want to start by making sure your baby's taking full feedings every 2.5 to 3.5 hours throughout the day. If you're bottle feeding, you're aiming for about 28 to 32 ounces in a 24-hour period. Ideally, majority of those calories, if not all of them, are coming during the day. Now, if you can make sure you're doing all of that, then you can feel pretty confident that your baby is not hungry overnight. And then number three, if your baby is confidently getting themselves to sleep at bedtime, but is still waking overnight for a feed, then you could start to wean out that feeding slowly. So I would recommend you start by cutting back the number of ounces in a bottle or the number of minutes you're nursing for by 1 to 2 ounces or 1 to 2 minutes every couple of nights. And you'll slowly do this until you're down to just about 1 to 2 ounces or 1 to 2 minutes of nursing. And at that point, you could cut the feed completely and know that your baby is not going to be hungry for it. Now, one thing that I have to say is that you need to resist the urge to jump to this step, to jump to weaning and cutting back the feeds before your child can confidently get themselves to sleep. Now, the reason for this is if you wean out a feed and your baby doesn't have the ability to get themselves to sleep without it, as soon as you cut that feed, you're going to be left with a baby who's awake and crying and doesn't know how else to get themselves back to sleep. So first, always give them the skills, give them the confidence to get themselves to sleep independently so that when you cut the feed completely, they have the ability to just get themselves right back to sleep. Now, I want you to keep in mind that this advice is for babies who are 12 weeks and older, and also that if your baby is younger than 6 months of age, a feeding overnight or in the early morning hours can be really common. So I wouldn't stress or try to force getting rid of that feed. I would just start by teaching your baby to fall asleep independently and focus on those full feedings throughout the day. Now, if you're still dealing with frequent overnight wakes or you need help teaching your baby to fall asleep independently because you've tried and it's been really hard or you're not even sure where to begin, send me a message or go to my website, seacoastpediatricsleep.com, and I'd be happy to chat with you. Teaching babies to fall asleep independently and confidently is what I do every single day, and I would love to help you get there.